Have you been studying for hours, days, or, maybe even years, only to see your English reading scores actually get worse?
Oh, yeah, it happens to so many people.
Right. What if I told you that everything you've been taught about reading tests, like skimming, scanning, and time management, is a complete lie?
I mean, it is an incredibly bold statement to open with, I know.
Yeah.
But looking at the cognitive science and the data, it is the absolute truth. Like the immense frustration that you, the listener, might be feeling right now, it is not your fault.
Not at all.
It's just the natural result of a fundamentally flawed, sort of outdated educational system that emphasizes speed over actual comprehension.
Exactly. So today, we're going to completely shatter the biggest myths about reading comprehension and show you the exact step-by-step strategies to achieve top-tier reading mastery, decode complex texts, and effortlessly boost your vocabulary.
We have so much to get through.
We really do. Today, we're going to cover 3 massive myths that are holding you back, teach you 5 essential reading skills you actually need, and reveal 1 revolutionary vocabulary method that is a total of 9 critical points that will transform how you read forever. Welcome to English Learning Podcast for daily life, real conversation, and easy listening practice. If you'd like to support our work, please don't skip the ads. They help us keep creating high-quality content and bring you even better lessons in the future. You can also join our membership program to get access to exclusive content, special resources, and many more valuable topics. Your support truly makes a difference.
It is so crucial to set the stage for exactly what we are undertaking in this deep dive today, right?
Yeah, for sure.
If you've tuned in, you are likely part of a very specific, really driven demographic. We are talking directly to the ambitious learners out there.
The ones putting in the real hours.
Exactly. Those of you who are aiming for that elusive high B2 to C1 level of fluency, you might be a medical or business professional preparing for high-stakes, life-changing credentialing tests.
Oh, those tests are brutal.
They are. Or perhaps you're just someone who is completely exhausted from hitting a plateau in your language journey. Like you've reached a level of conversational comfort, and now, no matter how hard you push, no matter how many articles you read, the needle simply will not move.
It's the worst feeling.
It really is.
Yeah.
So I want to take a moment to inspire and motivate you right here at the starting line. Your brain is a miraculous, infinitely adaptable engine. It is literally wired on an evolutionary level perfectly for language acquisition.
Yes, you are not broken.
Right. You are not lacking intelligence and you are not lacking capability. What you are lacking is, well, the correct map.
The map, I love that.
Yeah, you've been navigating a dense, modern metropolis with a map drawn 100 years ago by people who didn't understand how memory actually works. Today, we are handing you the GPS.
Upgrading the system.
Exactly. And I highly encourage you as we go through this material today to actively participate. When we analyze a sentence or introduce a phrase, speak it out loud. Engage those vocal cords in your room, in your car, or wherever you happen to be listening.
I absolutely love that framing, the right map. And that is exactly the topography we are mapping out for you today. Now, before we dive into those 9 critical points, we have a specialized feature woven throughout this deep dive.
A really fun one, actually.
Yeah, because our conversation is naturally going to touch upon high-level English concepts, and we will be seamlessly integrating B2 and C1 vocabulary, native idioms, and advanced phrasal verbs.
But we aren't just going to throw them at you.
No, we won't leave you to fend for yourself in a sea of jargon. We are going to deconstruct them. We will unpack these difficult C1 words nicely in simple language, repeat the idioms, and break down the phrasal verbs with clear, everyday example sentences. We want you leaving this session not just with better strategies, but with, a richer lexicon.
Exactly, because language is most effectively absorbed in a rich context. But occasionally, to truly wire a new phrase into your neural network, we need to put a spotlight directly on the mechanics of that word. We need to look at its gears and springs.
So let's actually warm up those speaking muscles right now with a real-life conversation exercise.
Let's do it.
We are going to do a quick, interactive role play focusing on weather small talk. Now, you might be thinking, weather, really? But the weather is the ultimate universal social lubricant.
Oh, 100%. It works everywhere.
Right. It is the perfect icebreaker, whether you are stepping into a tense corporate boardroom or just waiting in line at the grocery store. It establishes a shared reality. So, I will play the first part, and my brilliant colleague here will play the second part.
I am ready.
I want you, the listener, to actively repeat the phrases out loud right after we say them. Emulate the tone, the falling intonation, the casual rhythm. Are you ready? Here we go.
deep breath.
Beautiful day today, isn't it?
Absolutely. It finally cleared up after all that rain.
Okay, let's do that one more time, and I want you to really focus on how the words connect together. Notice how isn't almost sounds like one word. Try saying it out loud with me. Beautiful day today, isn't it?
And respond with enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It finally cleared up after all that rain.
Fantastic. I hope you actually spoke out loud just then. Now let's look at the mechanics of that incredible phrasal verb my partner just used, which is clear up.
A great one.
This is a solid, foundational B2 level phrasal verb, and it is our very first vocabulary highlight of the day.
Yes, clear up. Let's break this down into simple language. When we talk about the meteorological conditions, clearing up means the transition when the sky becomes sunny after a period of rain, heavy clouds, or storms.
So bad stuff goes away.
Exactly. The clouds literally dissipate and move away, leaving clarity in the sky. And the particle up in English phrasal verbs often signifies completeness or moving toward a better state, like think of clean up or cheer up.
That is a fascinating linguistic detail about the word up. So a great natural example sentence you could use in daily life would be, I hope the weather clears up before our picnic. I want you to literally say that sentence out loud right now, wherever you are. I hope the weather clears up before our picnic. Feel how the words flow.
It is such an organic, native-sounding construction. And remember, while its primary usage is often atmospheric, language is beautifully metaphorical. You can also use clear up for abstract situations.
Like an argument.
Yeah, exactly. For instance, clearing up a misunderstanding, which means to resolve a confusing interpersonal situation, bringing clarity to a clouded relationship. But, for the purpose of our foundation today, keep that sunny, cloudless sky in your mind.
Okay, let's unpack this larger journey we are embarking on today. We just stepped out of a beautiful sunny weather role play, but for most language learners, the reality of studying doesn't feel sunny at all.
Not even a little bit.
It feels more like stepping into a brutal, never-ending storm of terrible, contradictory advice. It is pouring rain, the wind is howling, and everywhere you turn, on blogs, in textbooks, from well-meaning friends, someone is shouting a different trick or shortcut at you.
Which serves as the perfect transition to point number 1 of our 9 points today. This is the biggest, most damaging myth in the entire language learning ecosystem. We call it the practice makes perfect myth.
Oh, this one makes me crazy.
It's everywhere. It is widely believed by top educators, legacy institutions, and students alike that sheer brute force volume of practice is the ultimate key to success. The prevailing wisdom is, just keep doing it, keep grinding, and eventually, through sheer attrition, you will magically get the score or the fluency you need.
Right. You hear it all the time. Just do 50 more practice tests, bleed over your textbooks, set your alarm for 4 a.m. and drill flashcards. That is the pervasive mentality. But to understand on a cognitive level why this is a complete disaster, I want to tell you a story. Let's talk about 2 hypothetical people, Johnny and Emma.
Oh, this is one of my favorite structural comparisons because it perfectly illustrates the trap of blind repetition.
Right. Okay, so picture Johnny. Johnny is a farmer. He grew up on a massive, sprawling agricultural property in the countryside. His dad had this beat-up, old, rusty manual transmission car. And since Johnny was 9 years old, just a little kid, barely able to see over the dashboard, he has been illegally driving his dad's car around the private dirt roads of the farm.
Just zooming around the mud.
Exactly. We are talking about a full decade of driving experience by the time he is 19. He has spent thousands of hours behind the wheel, navigating mud, steep hills, and narrow fence lines.
Now, let's contrast Johnny with Emma. Emma is 18 years old. She grew up in the middle of a dense, highly walkable metropolitan city with fantastic public transportation.
Right, taking the subway everywhere.
Exactly. Before she turned 18, Emma had never even touched a steering wheel. She did not know where the brake pedal was. She did not know how to adjust the mirrors. She didn't know what a turn signal did. 0 hours of experience. A completely blank slate. But when she turned 18, she decided she wanted her license. So she hired a professional, highly qualified, certified driving instructor for exactly 6 weeks.
Okay, so if you're listening to this, you're probably seeing where the narrative is going. We have Johnny with 10 years, a whole decade, thousands of hours of driving experience, and Emma with just a meager 6 weeks. The day finally comes for their official, highly standardized government driving test. Who do you think failed multiple times, and who do you think passed on their very first try?
It is the ultimate subversion of expectations. Johnny, despite his thousands of hours behind the wheel, failed miserably, multiple times. The examiner was terrified.
Or bad.
And Emma, with her brief 6 weeks of instruction, passed with flying colors on her absolute first attempt.
So we have to pause and deconstruct this. What does this all mean? How does 10 years of rigorous practical experience lose so spectacularly to 6 weeks of study?
It fundamentally comes down to the quality of the instruction and the neurobiology of habit formation. Johnny wasn't taught properly. When he was driving around that farm for 10 years, he was practicing the wrong things.
He had no guidance.
He was entirely alone. No one was correcting him. He wasn't using his turn signals because there was no traffic. He wasn't checking his blind spots because there were no pedestrians. He was probably steering with one hand, holding a soda in the other, and ignoring every imaginary speed limit.
He was just surviving the dirt roads.
Exactly. And more dangerously, he was ingraining bad habits. In neuroscience, there is a concept called myelin. When you repeat an action, your brain wraps a fatty substance called myelin around the neural pathways associated with that action, insulating them and making the signal travel faster.
So it makes the habit stronger.
Extremely strong. Johnny was heavily myelinating incorrect behavior. By the time he took the test, his brain was hardwired to drive badly. To pass, he didn't just have to learn the right way. He had to actively fight and unlearn 10 years of deeply myelinated mistakes.
Wow, that's tough.
Emma, on the other hand, was a blank slate. She only learned the correct way. She practiced the right things from day one, so she only built the correct neural pathways.
But wait, I have to push back here because this challenges a core belief many of us hold. Isn't repetition supposed to build muscle memory? We always hear that. Olympic athletes, concert pianists, they all talk about muscle memory all the time as the holy grail of mastery. If Johnny is repeating an action, if a language learner is repeating a reading test, isn't that practice inherently building their skills? How can practice actually be harmful?
That is a phenomenal, critical question, and it strikes at the heart of the myth. Yes, repetition builds muscle memory, or more accurately, procedural memory in the brain. But here is the incredibly dangerous part that nobody tells you. Your brain does not care if the action is correct or incorrect.
Wait, really?
Yeah, your brain is entirely agnostic to quality. Procedural memory is blind. If you practice swinging a golf club with a terrible posture 1,000 times, you haven't become a great golfer. You have simply built an incredibly strong, permanent habit of swinging the golf club terribly.
Oh, man.
Building the wrong procedural memory is destructive. It is infinitely worse than having no memory at all. Because to fix it, as I mentioned, you first have to dismantle the bad habit.
Oh, that makes so much sense. It is like trying to build a new house on top of a rotten foundation. You have to demolish the old one first, which takes twice as much time.
Exactly.
So when language learners go online, grab random, unverified tips and tricks from YouTube comment sections or flashy forums, and then ruthlessly practice those tricks for hundreds of hours across dozens of practice tests, they aren't improving.
Exactly. Their reading skills actually get worse. They are Johnny on the farm. They are practicing skimming blindly. They are practicing guessing answers without fully reading the context. They are ignoring the complex grammar structures, and they're literally ingraining failure into their testing habits. Having a scientifically backed, logical strategy is what separates out the successful people from the struggling millions.
Hold on, I caught that phrase you just used. Separates out. Let's isolate that right there because that is our second phrasal verb of the day, and it is a powerful, highly descriptive one. Separate out. This is a definitive C1 level phrasal verb.
Yes, separate out. To explain this simply but accurately, it means to divide or distinguish one specific group, person, or thing from a much larger mixed group based on a certain distinguishing quality. It is about identifying the crucial difference and pulling the special ones aside. The word out here emphasizes the extraction from the whole.
Right. Let's think of a visual analogy. Imagine you have a massive bowl of mixed fruit, apples, bananas, grapes, and strawberries. But you are severely allergic to strawberries. You must carefully go through the bowl and separate out all the strawberries so you don't have an allergic reaction. In the context of our deep dive today, having the correct, scientifically grounded strategy is what separates out the top-tier candidates who get those C1 scores from the millions of people who remain stuck at an average intermediate plateau.
A fantastic, highly useful example sentence for you to practice right now would be, we need to separate out the facts from the rumors. I want you to say that out loud, focusing on the emphasis on out. We need to separate out the facts from the rumors.
Excellent. Okay, looking at the clock, we're about 10 minutes into this deep dive. If you are already having those aha moments, if the story of Johnny on the farm made you realize that maybe you've been practicing the wrong things and reinforcing bad habits, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. It is the absolute best way to help our community grow, and it tells the algorithm that this is valuable, high-quality educational content. We have an immense amount of ground still to cover today, so hit that subscribe button right now to support the work.
Indeed, please do. Now, if we connect this realization back to the bigger picture of a learner's journey, we find another psychological trap. Since practicing blindly doesn't work, what do desperate, stressed-out learners try to do next?
Oh, I know this one.
When they realize their scores aren't going up despite hours of agonizing practice, they usually blame the clock. They think, I knew all the answers, I just didn't finish fast enough. I need to go faster.
Yes, the panic of the ticking clock.
Yeah.
The sweat on the brow as the examiner says 5 minutes remaining.
Yeah.
Which brings us to point number 2 of our 9 points today, the time management illusion. This is where the psychology of testing gets really interesting.
We call it an illusion because time management as a standalone skill is almost never the actual root cause of a failing reading score. Yet if you survey students, it is the most complained about issue globally.
Okay, let's unpack this illusion with an analogy that everyone can visualize. Everyone knows Usain Bolt, right?
The sprinter, yeah.
The legendary Jamaican sprinter, the fastest man in recorded human history. Think back to the Beijing or London Olympics, when Usain Bolt was winning gold medals, completely destroying world records and casually jogging across the finish line while everyone else was training. Picture the night before the Olympic final. Do you honestly think Usain Bolt was sitting in his hotel room, hunched over his laptop, frantically Googling time management tips for a 100-meter dash?
Of course not. It sounds entirely ridiculous when you frame it that way.
Right. Did he win gold because he wore a really expensive chronograph watch and perfectly managed his seconds? Did he have a better calendar app? No. He won because he was physically and biomechanically better at running than every single other human being on that track. His stride length, his fast-twitch muscle fibers, his form. That is what won the race.
Precisely. The other sprinters didn't lose because they had bad time management. They didn't lose because they didn't know how to look at a clock. They lost because, relative to Bolt, they were less skilled at the mechanics of running. Bolt was the most skilled runner, therefore he finished the race in the fastest time. The time was a byproduct of the skill. It was the symptom, not the cause.
And this translates perfectly to high-stakes language reading tests. If you put a native, highly educated English speaker, let's say a university professor, in a strict reading test that is designed to take a learner 60 agonizing minutes, that professor will often finish it with near-perfect accuracy in 20 minutes. Did they use ancient secret time management techniques? Did they budget 1.5 minutes per paragraph?
No, they didn't think about the time at all. They simply have superior reading skills in that language. They process the syntax instantly, their vocabulary recognition is automatic, they immediately recognize cohesive devices like furthermore or nevertheless, and crucially, they do not have to translate the English into their mother tongue in their head.
That translation step kills so much time.
It does. The hard truth that learners need to accept is this. You do not have a time management problem. You have a reading skills problem. You must address the actual root cause to fix it.
Address the actual root cause. I love how you phrase that. Let's highlight that word, address. This is a brilliant C1 vocabulary word that trips a lot of people up because they only know the basic definition. We aren't talking about the address of your house or where you send a letter.
Correct. As a formal verb, to address means to give your direct attention to or to deal with a problem, issue, or complex situation. It implies taking responsibility. When a fundamental problem exists, you cannot ignore it. You must address it head on. You must look at it, acknowledge it, and take decisive action to solve it.
Exactly. So an impactful example sentence for our listeners would be, we must address the issue of bad study habits before we take the exam again. Say it with us, embodying that formal tone. We must address the issue of bad study habits.
Beautifully done. And this leads us directly into our third phrasal verb of the day, which pairs perfectly with this concept of fixing problems. Focus in on. This is a highly descriptive, solid B2 phrasal verb.
Yes. To focus in on something means to give a massive, concentrated amount of attention to one particular person, subject, or thing. You are actively ignoring the distractions around it, the noise, the panic, the clock, and zooming your cognitive attention directly onto one specific target.
Like a laser.
Yes. Think of a high-powered camera lens sharpening its focus on a single, tiny flower in a massive, chaotic field. Everything else blurs out.
A perfect real-world example sentence for our learners today, applying exactly what we're teaching is, instead of worrying about the clock, focus in on improving your comprehension. Let's have you practice that out loud. Instead of worrying about the clock, focus in on improving your comprehension.
Great job. So let's take stock of where we are. We've completely crushed the practice makes perfect myth by understanding bad neural habits. We've destroyed the time management illusion by realizing that speed is just a byproduct of skill. So what is next? What is the holy grail of advice that every single language center, textbook, and online forum preaches to students as the ultimate salvation?
The twin pillars of bad advice, skimming and scanning.
Yes. Point number 3 of our 9 points today, the skimming and scanning trap.
It is widely believed by top educators across the globe that skimming and scanning are the magical keys to unlocking high reading scores. They teach it as if it is the only strategy you will ever need. Look quickly, find the keyword, grab the answer, and move on.
But it's a massive trap. And to explain why it fails so spectacularly under pressure, let's take a little mental trip. Imagine you and I are flying in a helicopter over New York City.
Okay, I'm visualizing it.
The sun is shining, the glass skyscrapers are glittering below us, the streets look like tiny rivers of yellow cabs, and the pilot turns to us and gives us a very specific task. We have to find one specific McDonald's restaurant located somewhere in Times Square.
A truly daunting task from the sky.
Exactly. Now, let's define skimming in the context of this scenario. Skimming is like looking out the helicopter window from 1,000 feet up in the air. You are just getting a general idea of where you are. You can see the macrogeography. You think, okay, there was Lower Manhattan. I see the Hudson River over there to the west, so that landmass in New Jersey. Over to the east, I see the bridges, so that must be Queens and Brooklyn.
So you get the big picture.
Right. Skimming tells you the general layout. You confirm you are, in fact, over New York City and not Chicago.
Which is helpful for basic context. Just like in a reading passage, skimming gives you the general theme. You know you are reading a historical article about the Industrial Revolution, not a scientific paper about marine biology. It orientates you. But can you see the front door of a specific McDonald's from 1,000 feet up in a helicopter?
Not a chance. You're way too far away. Your resolution is too low. You have a general idea of the text, but you cannot see the specific answer. So skimming alone is woefully incomplete. Now, let's look at scanning. To scan, the helicopter descends. We fly much lower, right into the urban canyon of the skyscrapers, and we hover right above the neon glow of Times Square.
Okay, we're closer now.
We are scanning the area. We see the massive digital billboards. We see the theaters. We see the crowds. We've successfully found the correct neighborhood. In a reading test, scanning helps you find the correct paragraph or the specific sentence area where a keyword from the question is located.
You are getting warmer. You are in the right general location. But looking down at the massive, chaotic crowds and dozens of generic storefronts in Times Square from a hovering helicopter, have you actually found the specific front door of that exact McDonald's yet? Can you read the menu through the window?
No. You know it is in the area, you know you are close, but you still haven't found the specific target. And this is exactly where the global education system fails millions of students every year. Most classrooms only teach you to fly the helicopter and hover over the neighborhood. They teach skimming and they teach scanning, but they leave out the final, most incredibly crucial step required to actually extract the answer.
The missing link, the secret weapon, is close reading. If skimming is flying over the city and scanning is hovering over the neighborhood, close reading is landing the helicopter, getting out onto the pavement, walking down the crowded street, and carefully, meticulously reading the signs on every single door until you find the exact restaurant you need.
It's the micro level.
Exactly. Close reading is the microscopic syntactical skill that actually gets you the correct answer. Without it, learners are just flying around New York in a panic, frantic, lost, and eventually, because the clock is ticking, they just guess.
Okay, I have to push back here because this sounds revolutionary, but it also sounds entirely counterintuitive to what everyone experiences in a classroom setting. If skimming and scanning are so incomplete, if they're just the first 2 steps of a much longer process, why does literally every teacher, every expensive textbook, and every preparatory course suggest them as the ultimate solution? Why is this the dominant narrative in language education?
That raises a very important, slightly uncomfortable question about the education industry. The harsh reality is that skimming and scanning are incredibly easy, fast, and cheap to teach.
Awesome.
Think about a crowded classroom of 30 stressed students. A teacher can explain the concept of skimming and scanning in 10 minutes. They can write, "Look for keywords" on the whiteboard. It gives the illusion of a strategy. It makes the student feel empowered, like they have been handed a secret weapon. But we have to look objectively at the data. It is believed that if that common advice actually worked as advertised, the global average reading scores for these high-stakes tests would be phenomenal.
Right. If the cure was that simple, everyone would be cured. But they aren't.
Exactly. The global average reading score remains mediocre at best. Millions of people are faithfully using skimming and scanning every weekend in exam sellers, and millions of people are failing to reach their target scores. That statistical reality alone proves that the common advice is profoundly insufficient.
Wow. Okay, so if skimming, scanning, and close reading are all just different parts of a larger cognitive puzzle, let's formally outline what you actually need to do step by step. This brings us to the core methodology, points 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 of our 9 points today. The 5 actual reading skills. Because as we just established, it is not just one magic trick, it is a sequential, logical process.
Correct. Let's walk through the sequence. Skill number 1. Understand the question and instructions first. This sounds painfully, almost insultingly obvious, but you would be shocked at how many brilliant people fail here.
Because of stress.
Yes. Under test conditions, your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, takes over. Anxiety spikes. People rush. If the instruction in bold letters says write no more than 2 words and you write 3 perfectly factually correct words, you fail that question, period. You must critically analyze what the question is demanding of you before your eyes ever glance at the text.
Absolutely. Cognitive tunneling under stress makes us blind to the obvious. Then comes skill number 2, skimming. As we establish, this is flying over the city to get the general meaning and macro layout of the text. Skill number 3 is scanning, utilizing visual search mechanisms to find the location of the specific information or keywords, narrowing down your search area to a specific paragraph.
And then we hit skill number 4, the absolute heavy lifter of comprehension, close reading. This is where you must intentionally slow down. You stop rushing. You transition from macrovision to microanalysis. You carefully analyze the sentence. You dissect the grammar. You look at the relationship between the subject, the verb, and the object.
You're really picking it apart.
Yes. You look for cohesive devices, words like although, however, consequently, that flip the entire meaning of a sentence. You truly comprehend the specific, nuanced meaning of that isolated section.
To give an example of why close reading is vital, imagine a sentence that says, while initial reports suggested the virus was airborne, subsequent, more rigorous studies have entirely debunked this theory. If you were just scanning for the keyword airborne, you might think the text says the virus is airborne. But if you close read, you see the word while, setting up a contrast, and debunked, destroying the initial claim.
Exactly. Scanning finds the word, close reading extracts the truth. And finally, skill number 5. Deciding the correct answer. This isn't just picking the one that has the most matching vocabulary. This means using pure deductive logic to make the final choice, especially when dealing with distractors.
Oh, those tricky options.
Yes, those psychologically engineered answers designed specifically to look right to a scanning student, but which are actually slightly wrong upon logical inspection.
So to reiterate, those are your 5 actual sequential skills: question analysis, skimming, scanning, close reading, and logical decision-making.
It is an algorithmic approach to text.
Okay, so we have our 5 skills. But here's where my mind goes, thinking about practical application. Now that we have these tools in our tool belt, do we just blindly apply this exact 5-step sequence, like a robot, to every single question we ever face? Do we treat every problem exactly the same?
This is where we transition into the nuance of test strategy, moving into point number 9 of our master plan, specifically part A. We have to talk about different routes for different destinations. To answer your question directly, a resounding no. You cannot use the exact same approach for every question type because different questions are testing entirely different parts of your brain.
Let's use a travel analogy for this to make it crystal clear.
Yeah.
If I am starting in New York and my ultimate destination is Las Vegas, Nevada, I'm going to pack a certain way. I'm going to take a specific interstate highway. I expect a desert environment, intense heat, and a specific rocky terrain. Now, if you are also starting in New York, but your destination is Seattle, Washington, would we travel along the exact same route?
Of course not. If I took your southern route to Vegas trying to get to Seattle, I would end up stranded in a scorching desert when I actually wanted the rainy, evergreen Pacific Northwest. I need a completely different map, different clothes for the rain, and an entirely different geographical mindset.
Exactly. And high-level reading comprehension questions are exactly like different cities. They're completely different destinations, testing completely different cognitive abilities. Treating them all the same is a recipe for disaster.
Let's break down 3 classic, notoriously difficult question types to demonstrate how fundamentally different they are. First, consider matching headings. This question type asks you to match a short, summarized title to a long, complex paragraph. What cognitive skill is this actually testing?
It's testing the big picture, right?
Yes, it is testing your macro understanding of main ideas and general meaning. It wants to know if you can zoom out and see the whole forest instead of hyper-fixating on the individual trees.
Contrast that with true, false, or not given questions. These are universally considered the absolute bane of every language learner's existence. People lose sleep over these.
And they lose sleep because they try to use the matching heading strategy on them. True, false, not given questions test the exact opposite of matching headings. They do not care about the general meaning of the paragraph. They test microscopic, rigorous close reading within a single sentence or two. They test your logical analysis and epistemic modality. Like, can you identify the difference between a stated fact, a contradictory claim, or information that is simply omitted?
If the text says researchers believe the sky is blue and the question says the sky is blue, a fast scanner marks true. But a close reader realizes that a researcher believing something is a claim, not an established fact presented by the author. It might be not given. And then you have multiple choice questions. These are entirely different beasts again. They test careful comparison, working memory, and the ruthless elimination of distractors.
Which perfectly introduces our 4th phrasal verb of the day. A highly analytical C1 powerhouse. Rule out.
Rule out. I absolutely love this one. When you are doing multiple choice questions, your primary job is often not to find the right answer immediately, but to rule out the bad options before finding the good one. To rule out means to stop considering something as a possibility. You analyze it, you find the logical flaw, you realize it is false, and you permanently eliminate it from your mind so you can focus on the remaining options.
Exactly. It is a very clinical, analytical phrase. Think of a medical context. A doctor might rule out a bacterial infection after running a blood test, meaning they know for sure it's not bacteria, so they can move on to testing for a virus. In our context of reading strategies, an example sentence would be, by reading carefully, you can rule out the incorrect answers immediately. Let's have our listeners try that one out loud. By reading carefully, you can rule out the incorrect answers immediately.
Fantastic. So we know we need different strategies for different questions. Let's prove that this actually works in practice. Theory is great, but execution is everything. Let's move into a real-time application. Let's tackle the dreaded matching headings question right now, together, using a revolutionary approach.
Let's do it. We are going to share a strategy that completely flips the traditional mainstream advice upside down. We call it the title strategy.
So here is the common mistake, the Johnny on the farm approach to matching headings. The student opens the test booklet. They see a list of 10 possible headings labeled Roman numeral 1 through 10. They read the list first. Their brain tries to desperately memorize 10 completely out of context, random, highly academic sentences. Then they go to the first paragraph, and their brain is just a scrambled, chaotic mess of those 10 headings. They get lost. They read every single word of the paragraph trying to find a match. They waste 10 precious minutes, and they panic.
It is a textbook case of cognitive overload. In psychology, there is a concept known as Miller's Law, which suggests the average human can only hold about 7 items in their working memory at one time. Your short-term memory simply cannot hold 10 complex headings while simultaneously trying to decode and comprehend a dense, unfamiliar new paragraph. The mental RAM is full. So here is the revolutionary strategy. When you see a matching headings question, I want you to completely ignore the list of headings. Pretend they do not exist. Do not even glance at them.
Wow. Okay. That feels scary. So I am staring at paragraph D, for example, and I have absolutely no idea what the 10 options are. I am flying blind.
Exactly. You look only at the paragraph. You read it, utilizing your skimming to get the layout and your close reading skills on the first and last sentences where the main ideas usually live, and you force yourself to invent your own original title for that paragraph.
Okay, let's walk through a highly detailed example so people can visualize this. Imagine I am reading a dense academic paragraph. It's talking about how a massive drought in sub-Saharan Africa has left millions without drinking water. Then it shifts to talk about how industrial runoff has polluted major rivers in Southeast Asia, sickening the local populations. Then it mentions a lack of seasonal rain in South America, causing crop failures and dehydration. I read this and I think to myself, okay, what is the core unifying macro idea here? So I grab my pencil and I write a rough, ugly, simple title in the margin. I write, a large proportion of world population affected by water problems.
Perfect. It doesn't have to be elegant. It doesn't have to use high-level vocabulary. It just has to be accurate to your genuine understanding of the text. Now, and only now, with your custom title acting as an anchor in your working memory, you look at the list of actual headings provided by the test.
Okay, so I'm looking down the long list of psychological distractors. I have my rough title, World Population Affected by Water Problems, firmly in mind. Option 1 says Financing Global Initiatives. Nope, my paragraph said nothing about money or banks. Option 2 says Customer Reactions to Utility Bills. Nope, nothing about customers. Option 3 says Warm Welcomes for New Water Filtration Devices. Definitely not, no devices were mentioned. I am scanning past all these completely irrelevant ideas rapidly, and then my eyes hit option 7, the number of people affected by water shortages.
Boom. You immediately spot the match. Your brain already did the heavy lifting of synthesizing the paragraph's meaning. When you see the correct heading, it clicks instantly because it matches your preformed concept. What used to take 5 minutes of agonizing, anxiety-inducing back and forth between the text and the list now takes 30 seconds.
30 seconds. That is the astonishing power of utilizing the right cognitive strategy. Now, as we look at that example, the word affected is quite common. But in higher level C1 texts, or in advanced academic writing, you might see a much stronger, more sophisticated synonym. Let's teach our listeners the C1 word, afflicted.
Afflicted. It is a beautiful, deeply evocative, albeit slightly tragic word. It means to be caused profound pain, severe suffering, or immense trouble by something. It is magnitude stronger than just being affected. If you are affected by a rainstorm, you might get a little wet and annoyed. If you are afflicted by a disease, you are suffering deeply, physically, and emotionally.
That is a brilliant distinction. The connotation of suffering is key. So relating back to our water scarcity example, a powerful sentence would be, many regions of the globe are afflicted by severe, prolonged droughts. Let's practice that pronunciation, paying special attention to the hard, crisp C and T sounds in the middle. Try it. Many regions are afflicted by severe droughts.
Very well done. Now, we have covered cognitive strategies, debunked long-standing myths, and provided specific actionable techniques. But here is the ultimate twist in our deep dive today. This is the truth that very few people want to talk about. Even with these amazing, scientifically backed strategies, some students still fail. They apply the title strategy perfectly, they execute flawless close reading, they manage their anxiety, and they still get the wrong answer. Why?
Because we have been lying to ourselves about what this test actually is. We call it a reading comprehension test.
Yep.
That is what is printed on the cover of the booklet. But that is a clever disguise.
We call it the great synonym secret.
Yes. This entirely blew my mind when I first realized the mechanics of test creation. A reading test is not actually a reading test. It is a massive, brutal vocabulary and synonym test wearing a disguise.
Let's look at the hard, undeniable proof of how these standardized tests are mathematically constructed. Test writers are absolute masters of paraphrase. They will present a question that asks about one specific fact, and the text will contain the exact same factual information, but it will be written utilizing entirely different vocabulary.
Right, so let's say you are using the scanning technique. You are scanning the text for the exact words you saw in the question. Let's say the question asks a historical detail about a civil calendar. You're scanning, looking for the word civil starting with a C. You can't find it. You read the paragraph 3 times. You panic. The clock is ticking. You guess randomly. You get it wrong. Why? Because the text didn't use the word civil. The text used the phrase municipal calendar.
Exactly. Or consider another common trick. The question might ask if the ancient Egyptian months were of equal length, 12 months of 30 days. You scan for 12 and 30. But the text says the ancients divided the annual cycle into equal chronological portions. Or the question mentions 12-hour periods, but the text deliberately obscures this by saying 2 equal halves of a day.
If you do not have the lexical resource to know that civil and municipal are synonyms, if you do not fundamentally know that they both relate to a city, citizens, or local government, no amount of skimming, scanning, or time management strategy will save you. You will stare right at the correct answer, your eyes will pass over it 5 times, and you will not even realize it is the answer.
This is exactly why vocabulary is the absolute non-negotiable bedrock of language proficiency. If you lack the vocabulary, you are trying to build a magnificent house without any bricks. You just have empty space.
And this brings up a huge structural problem in how we learn. Because how do most people try to learn vocabulary? They try to brute force it. They print out massive, intimidating lists of words. They make Hundreds of digital flashcards with a word on one side and a native translation on the back, completely devoid of any context. They stare at them for hours on the train. And what happens neurobiologically?
It leads perfectly to our idiom of the day. The information simply goes in one ear and out the other.
Go in one ear and out the other. This is such a visual, fantastic idiom. It literally paints a picture of a spoken word flying into your left ear, traveling straight through the empty space of your brain without hitting anything, and flying right out the right ear without leaving a single, solitary trace of memory. It means information that is heard or read, but is immediately, almost instantly forgotten. It does not stick to the neural walls.
And that is exactly what happens with flashcards devoid of contextual anchors. Rote memorization fails because it lacks episodic memory, the memory of events, emotions, and contexts. This leads to massive psychological demotivation. As educators and linguists know, highly disciplined learners can force themselves to memorize a sterile list for 10 minutes, maybe even 10 days if a stressful test is looming. But they cannot sustain that sterile practice for 10 weeks. The brain efficiently rejects and prunes information it deems contextually irrelevant.
Before we talk about the scientific way to fix that memory leak, let's look at a phrasal verb related to secrets and reveals, which ties into the synonym secret we just uncovered. Phrasal verb number 5 today, give away. This is a versatile B2, bordering on C1 level phrase depending on the usage.
To give away. Now, in this specific context, we aren't talking about charity or giving a physical gift to someone for free. We mean to accidentally or intentionally reveal hidden information, a secret, or an answer.
Right. Like if you are planning a massive surprise birthday party for your best friend and you accidentally leave the receipt for the birthday cake sitting on the kitchen counter where they can see it, the receipt gives away the surprise. It ruins the secret. In our reading strategy context, an example sentence would be, the title of the text will usually give away its main topic, saving you time. Let's have you practice that out loud. The title of the text will usually give away its main topic.
Perfect. So we have firmly established that rote memorization goes in one ear and out the other. This brings us to the crucial second half of our 9th point today, point 9, part B, the vocabulary improvement plan. If sterile flashcards are out, if brute force memorization is biologically flawed, how do we actually build this crucial, massive lexical resource required to conquer the synonym disguise?
We turn to actual science. We turn to neurobiology and cognitive psychology because there's an actual hardwired biological limit to how much your brain can process and store in a given period.
There is extensive, peer-reviewed research in cognitive science and linguistics regarding second language acquisition. It is widely believed by top linguists and neuroscientists that the maximum number of completely new, disconnected, abstract words a human being can effectively learn and retain in their long-term memory per day is about 8 to 12.
Wait, hold on. Let's emphasize that. 8 to 12 words. That is it. People are out here on apps trying to memorize lists of 50, 60 words a day. I've seen people boasting about learning 100 words a weekend.
And they are universally failing to retain them a month later. Because after word number 12, a phenomenon known as cognitive overload sets in. The hippocampus, which is the part of the brain responsible for consolidating short-term memory into long-term memory, essentially becomes a bottleneck. It is like trying to pour a gallon of rushing water into a tiny, delicate teacup.
That's a great image.
Yeah, the first few drops go in, but the rest just violently spills over the sides and is entirely wasted. Vocabulary must be absorbed slowly, consistently, and contextually over weeks and months. It is a slow, steady, intravenous drip, not a fire hose. Furthermore, synaptic consolidation, the actual physical wiring of these memories, mostly happens while you sleep. You cannot rush biology.
Okay, so if I strictly only have 8 to 12 cognitive slots a day, how do I make absolutely sure I'm filling them with words that will actually stick? Words that won't just go in one ear and out the other.
You observe and replicate what babies and toddlers do. You learn through rich context, and more importantly, you learn through passion and emotional connection. There is a concept called the affective filter hypothesis.
I heard of this.
When you are bored or anxious, your brain puts up a filter that blocks learning. When you are happy, engaged, and relaxed, the filter lowers and you absorb information like a sponge. The strategy is breathtakingly simple, but incredibly effective. Read and learn about what you genuinely love.
Yes. If you are completely obsessed with Japanese manga or comic books, do not force yourself to read dense, dry, academic papers about macroeconomics to learn vocabulary. You will hate it, your affective filter will go up, and you will learn nothing. Read your favorite Japanese manga, but find the English translated versions. If you are a foodie, a chef, or just someone who loves cooking, read English cookbooks, food blogs, or incredibly detailed restaurant reviews.
The underlying psychology here is brilliant. When you read about something you are intrinsically, personally motivated to understand, your brain's emotional centers, the amygdala and the hippocampus, are heavily engaged working together. When you encounter a word you don't know in a thrilling story you actually care about, you don't just skip it indifferently. You desperately want to know what it means because it unlocks the next beat of the story. The motivation is internal, not external.
So, practically speaking, mechanically, how do we execute this? You are sitting on the couch reading your English manga. You see a word you don't know. Do you immediately reach for your phone and open a dictionary app?
No, absolutely not. That instantly breaks the immersive flow of reading and outsources the vital cognitive work to your phone. First, you just underline it with a pencil. Then you look at the words around it, the syntactical context. You become a linguistic detective. You guess the meaning based on the situation and the morphology of the word and the grammar. If a character in your story is crying on their knees in the rain and says they feel despondent, you don't need a dictionary to tell you it's a negative emotion.
Right. They're crying in the rain.
Exactly. You can deduce that despondent means very sad, crushed, or hopeless. You guessed it from context. This is the exact natural mechanism by which children acquire their massive native vocabulary. They don't use dictionaries, they use situational context.
And once you've guessed it, you verify it later, and then you write it down. Keep a little dedicated notebook, and I mean a physical notebook, because the tactile act of writing by hand physically engages different motor pathways in the brain, which actually aids memory retention far better than typing on a screen. Add your 8 to 12 carefully selected new words to it every single day. Because you are learning them in the context of something you deeply love, you will retain them naturally, and you will actually look forward to your reading time. It fundamentally stops being a stressful chore and becomes a relaxing hobby.
Exactly. Consistency born from genuine enjoyment is the ultimate undefeated language learning hack.
This brings us to a perfect moment for our audience interaction task. We have covered so much incredible, dense ground today, from shattering the time management myth to understanding the neurobiology of vocabulary acquisition. I want you, the listener, to actively participate in your learning right now. I want you to pick one key word or one idiom that we already explained today. Maybe it was clear up, separate out, address, focus in on, rule out, afflicted, go in one ear and out the other, or give away. Pick your absolute favorite one, write a brand new original sentence applying it to your own life, and I want you to write your answer in the comment box right now. We read them, and the act of public generation is a fantastic way to solidify your learning.
Please do. Active application is the final necessary step of true comprehension.
Now, as we begin to wrap up this massive, comprehensive deep dive, I promised you a bonus at the very beginning of the show, and I always deliver on my promises. Here is the ultimate bonus tip for your daily life, rooted in cognitive psychology. Don't just read words, write about them. This is known as the output hypothesis. If you read a fascinating article about cooking, don't just close the book and walk away. Try writing a short paragraph, just 3 or 4 sentences, summarizing what you read, and consciously force yourself to use 3 of the new words you learned that day. Applying the knowledge creatively and generating your own sentences makes it stick permanently in your long-term memory.
It forces your brain to switch from passive reception, just letting words wash over you, to active production. That cognitive leap is where true, lasting fluency is actually born.
I want to see who made it all the way to the end of this intense journey with us. It takes immense dedication and mental stamina to reshape your learning habits. So at the end of this audio session, please go to the comment box and write the exact phrase, "I am consistent." Let us know you have the grit and the perseverance to succeed in your language journey.
We also thrive on your feedback. Please let us know in the comments which kind of topic do you want for the next deep dive. We designed this curriculum specifically for you, targeting your exact pain points.
Absolutely. If you found value in this deep dive, please support the channel. Also, if you want to read an amazing, highly detailed article about English learning to immediately practice your new close reading and title strategy skills, go into the description box. I provided a special link there. If you subscribe just once, you will receive premium free articles delivered straight to your email for free every single time. It is a fantastic curated resource.
And remember, successful language learning is about daily immersion.
Yes, it is. If you enjoyed this podcast, there are many more podcasts on my channel covering everything from advanced grammar to conversational fluency. Go check them out and binge watch your favorites. Your English will thank you. The more you listen, the more you expose yourself to natural rhythms, the more those neurological pathways strengthen and myelinate.
Before we officially sign off, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought, something to deeply ponder as you go about the rest of your day.
We talked at length about learning vocabulary through things you love, like manga or cookbooks. But consider this from a psychological perspective. How might your brain process and store a new word differently if you learned it while laughing out loud at a brilliant stand-up comedy show versus reading it in a dense, dry, stressful academic paper at 2 a.m.? Think about the profound emotional connection to words. Maybe pure joy is the greatest memory tool of all. Keep exploring, keep questioning the old methods, and we'll see you in the next deep dive.
And one last reminder, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Goodbye for now, and happy learning.